Yeah, good on me.
What's up, PAX Unplugged? Who's ready to lose some money?
You guys were too excited for that. Hi, everybody. My name is Justin Robert Young. This is John Teasdale, and this is How to Lose $40,000 on Kickstarter.
Right, you might think...
Did somebody boo that? Because they should have. That's the appropriate response to that concept.
I mean, as well advertised as the title was. It is why we're here. All right, so this is us. Yeah, there's the woo.
That's a good woo. It's a hell of a woo.
All right, why don't we do a little introductions first?
Sure. So, hi, my name is Justin Robert Young. I graduated from the Newhouse School of Public Communication with a degree in newspaper journalism. I then promptly wasted that and my $33,000 in debt when I left school so I could pursue a career in the lucrative field of sketch comedy. Deciding that was just too rich and decadent for my blood, I decided to move on to becoming a professional podcaster where the real money is made. And I've done that for about 10 years now, and as of 2 years ago, it became my full-time job. So that is a basic primer on who I am. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. John?
All right, well, I got a software engineering degree in Canada where it was basically free, so avoided that. Very high value degree, moved to San Francisco to work for Amazon.com.
Nice.
Yeah, this was this was when its stock was around $200 or $200. It's like $1,200 now.
Ground floor.
Ground floor.
Yeah.
So anyways, I left almost immediately.
Oh. So wait, do you still get your stocks?
No.
Oh.
No stocks. I had to pay back some of my sign-on bonus, actually. So I paid them to leave in order to go to the Go game where I became a professional scavenger hunt host with Justin. That's where I met Justin. Now, before Justin and I became friends and did the big project that we're going to tell you about, I kickstarted my own card game by myself. So the reason that this talk is not about what most people think it's about, which is, we didn't do enough planning ahead of time and things ended up costing more than expected, was because I already did that.
Yeah.
With my first game, which was called Stranger Danger. So, Stranger Danger, by the skin of its teeth, raised $10,000 on Kickstarter, $10,000 goal. And after Kickstarter fees, graphic design fees, production costs.
Oh, wait, hold on. That's already more.
Yeah, that's already kind of below. Then shipping.
Oh,
right?
geez, that's a lot too.
Ship it to people.
Yeah.
Taxes.
Oh, you should have probably remembered that.
Uncle Sam, right? Always in
It's
the
like
pocket.
only two certainties in life, so.
And then I've been a very enthusiastic lawyer who convinced me to get the trademark for Stranger Danger, which starts down.
Yeah.
They were really enthusiastic. So on $10,000 raised, we ended up spending $24,000 for a primer of $14,000. So again, this is the intro. This is how to lose $14,000 on Kickstarter. We haven't even gotten started yet.
Yeah, that's a little amuse-bouche for you, a little appetizer with your whistle.
With our powers combined.
Yeah. And with that kind of math skills, they said, bring on the sketch comedian podcaster. He'll right the ship.
So we ended up coming up with an idea for a card game called The Contender.
Yeah.
Which is a conversational card game where you don't have to do any improv. Basically, we give you the tools are cards, to be able to debate your friends like a politician.
Yeah. So John and I were coming back from a lunch one day, and we started talking about, okay, well, we should make a game. And John, you had this idea for a certain kind of game.
Right. So I had the idea, I wanted to make it a game that sounded like a conversation while you were playing it. And I thought that was the only solid idea that I had. And what I pitched to Justin was, I don't know, maybe you're trying to trap the other person into saying something politically incorrect.
So oftentimes I'm not listening to other people, I'm just waiting for my turn to talk, and I just heard politics. And I said, great idea, John, let's make it about politics. And so because I'm a political junkie and I love political history, we came up with this idea for using all of the famous quotes from debates throughout history where you could go back and forth with your friends. And again, what really attracted us to the idea was to do a game that sounded like a real conversation back and forth without anybody having to make something up. Because as much as we love social games that involve creativity and kind of making stuff up from whole cloth or even from a prompt, the idea of everything being on rails we thought was just a lot more inclusive and fun. And then to have the political sheen on top of it was just the idea of the moment.
Right, and like little did we know, we ended up launching the Kickstarter 2 weeks after Donald Trump announced that he was running. So little did we know how crazy this was gonna be.
Yeah.
At the time, we were just like, oh, it's an election year.
Yeah.
Maybe people will be interested in politics.
Back then, we thought that our Kickstarter campaign would end about the time that Donald Trump's ended. We were one of the many things we were wrong about.
Yeah. So we ended up raising $142,000. Yeah, woo! But, I mean, you all know the title of this talk. So.
Yeah.
So before we get started, I just want to say that you can go to the contender.us and use the discount code PAX to get free shipping for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
If you're the first one to do it, we have one right here that we can
We'll give it to you.
ship it to you as quickly as we possibly can.
And then otherwise, the Battlegrounds store next to the tabletop area has them, so those are the plugs.
Boom. All right, so this talk isn't about how did we make $140,000 on Kickstarter, but we do want to cover just some of the basics for those of you who may not be as avid readers of Medium posts as we are. So the big thing, like other than catching that wave, catching the political wave of enthusiasm right when it was happening, the big thing that most like how do you make money on Kickstarter talks or articles don't emphasize was how big of a starting audience that you had. How big of an audience did you bring to the campaign? And this is where Justin's podcasting career choice started to pay off.
Finally. Like I said, I've been podcasting for 10 years, and a lot of the shows that we've done have a amazing audience that is like very dedicated, and we've done a lot of really cool stuff before, but I had never really myself done any kind of like big product or big kind of ask, and this was going to be the first time that I could get everybody excited about something that was larger and could really make some waves, and that gave us a huge initial surge, specifically in the first day where we were up on stage at a little conference called Nerdtacular. Anybody go to Nerdtacular here? There's one person?
Yeah!
Awesome. It's great. I was up on stage for like 12 hours on like 4 or 5 different panels, and each time there was a captive audience of at least a couple hundred where we could keep everything going, and that proved to be invaluable. We wound up crashing through our goal within 12 hours and really set the table for success for the campaign.
Right, and I'm sure there's a lot of other things that go into making a successful Kickstarter, but we're just gonna show you like where the money came from in the pie. So this first slice here is just from write-ups. So a lot of times, like you really, really want, or the idea is, go out, get people to write about you, they'll put links in their thing, it'll send it to your page, and then people will, buy or back your Kickstarter. We ended up getting pretty good coverage during our campaign, but a lot of the references that we got weren't actually from any individual source that we got.
Yeah, and so that would be links from the articles themselves, clicking through and people buying.
Right, so that ended up being a really small chunk. This next bit is social media, Facebook, Reddit, Twitter, sort of things that we didn't directly send out. This was people sharing, people telling other people about the campaign and getting other people on board.
And this, again, is kind of a reflection of built-in audience beforehand. So any audience that you have, if you're launching a Kickstarter, make sure that they are aware of it. You cannot plug enough. I know it feels awkward. It is very awkward, but you've got to get it out there. Not everybody is living inside your head like you are, wondering whether or not you're talking about it too much. Many people are living lives and are very excited when you've tweeted about it for the 50th time because they're only seeing it for the first.
Right, which brings us to the next category, which is direct. So this is the email list. This is directly sending the links to people, probably some of the write-up that doesn't actually, attach the correct headers or whatever it is they have to do to make it show up as a write-up, get lumped in here. But yes, to reiterate what Justin said, like, my best friends don't back the Kickstarter until they're told 7 times.
Yeah.
And that's my best friends.
Many, by the way, still don't even know what Kickstarter is.
Right.
It is amazing. Here, obviously, we're all in the know because we're the cool kids table. But the rest of these dweebs, they're no idea.
Right. So why do we know here? Now, this rest of this blue box, you're probably wondering how that divides up, or the blue pie chart, and that doesn't actually divide. That's all Kickstarter. This is why when you make a game, when you crowdfund a game, Kickstarter is still the only place to do it. They have a very good built-in community. They have awesome tools for it. They have their own tabletop page.
Yeah, and in our experience, people buy tabletop games in 2 places, Kickstarter and Amazon. And the cooler, more rewarding place for many people, I'm sure in this room, is Kickstarter. You get the bonuses, you get, all the extras. Sometimes it's a little bit cheaper, and you get the satisfaction of knowing that you will definitely get that game. Even if it's late, it might not make it to Amazon, but you will get your hands on it, and therefore, it is, bar none, the place to launch your crowdfunding campaign, in our opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's where the money came from.
Oh, and also if you can get into their emails.
Oh yeah.
Jeez, that was $11,000 just for eating breakfast. It was awesome.
They have the projects we love, and then they have their specialized email campaigns, and they're doing more and more of this. So definitely send some flowers to someone at Kickstarter.
Yeah.
All right. That's how we made the money.
Enough of all these good news,
that's good news.
Tidbits.
We spent 4 minutes on that. That's far too long. So, first of all, $142,000. Now, that's not the amount of money that ends up being deposited in your bank account.
No.
Because Kickstarter takes a cut. Your payment processor takes a cut. Lots of pledges actually cancel. People cancel at last minute. Credit card transactions don't actually go through. So the amount that actually hit our bank account was closer to $127,000.
Still a lot of money, though, John.
Still a lot of money.
That's a tremendous amount of money.
Right.
How could anyone ever spend that amount of money?
Good point. So the big, as you work your way up the money scale, the 2 biggest questions that you have to ask after your Kickstarter is done is, where do you manufacture and how many do you order?
Yeah.
Now again, we did research ahead of time this time. We showed you what happens with the stranger danger. That was no research. We had spreadsheets, we had graphs. I sent around surveys to our team and the people at home, just to see when we should unlock new reward tiers. And for the most part, that was very, very good. But during our social media campaign, one of the questions that we were asked, and this is in July, was, will the game be available by Christmas? And we said, yeah.
Literally, we said this hours before the campaign was over. We were doing a victory live stream so we could get every little bit that we could, rally up any of the hardcore audience that hadn't pitched in yet. We were offering last-minute little add-ons, and I am not kidding you. We were both in top hats with champagne in our hands. When somebody says, "Can I have it by Christmas?" And we're like, "Sure!"
It was really hot that day.
It was, yeah, so we're like, Christmas is like 1,000,000 years from now. Scientists may not think that it's even gonna happen. Like, of course we'll have it by Christmas.
Yeah, it's like Starbucks isn't serving pumpkin spice lattes yet.
No, we have all the time in the world.
So, with that in mind, like that answer ended up directing our thinking a lot more, because the two options really that there are for printing is, do you do it domestically or do you do it in China? As far as where do you manufacture? We were thinking, all right, one, the game's about American politics. It'd be very, very cool to have a Made in the USA stamp.
America.
Very cool to have a Made in the USA stamp on there. Also, we had promised Christmas, and so we assumed the turnaround time would be a lot quicker working with a US-based manufacturer.
Yeah, we'd heard a lot of stories about, you send it off to China, and then all of a sudden the boat that your game is on is suspected to have some illegal ferret, and, the Chinese government compounds it, and next thing you know, you don't know where your games are for another 7 years.
Right. And that combined with the how many do you want to order, because it should come as no shock that it's much more expensive to get things manufactured stateside. So while we were thinking about these two questions, this is what our sales graph looked like. Now the numbers on there are very small, but this is, again, $142,000 in a month. This is what the chart looks like while we were making this decision.
Yeah,
Now,
and by the way, that is very atypical, including a Kickstarter that we've run more recently to now. Most have a big start, some flat line in the middle, and then a pickup toward the end. That is the general rule of Kickstarter. The fact that we had this kind of growth was rare, not only in our experience, but just in general.
Right, so we're looking at this, we're thinking we have sustained enthusiasm. Not only that, the election is just picking up. So this is what the full graph looked like to us. So this is what we had in our heads. Now that is a very, very optimistic graph.
Well, look at that. That is a tremendous trajectory, right?
Right.
We have...
there's almost a year before the election.
And that means that there's a lot of people that are going to want to, be thinking about those kinds of games. They are going to want to buy it as maybe even a tchotchke, because every single card in this game is based on a real presidential or presidential candidate quote, which means that political junkies might just want to have it, specifically when everybody's gotten election crazy.
Right.
And, even though we did get it out by Christmas by the skin of our teeth for an extra $10,000 because we screwed up and our manufacturer screwed up, whatever, we figured, hey, that's not really our Christmas. Our Christmas is all 2016 leading up to the election.
Yeah, we had this idea in our head that we were going to be the game of the election. And well, we didn't assume that this momentum would continue, because it doesn't fit on the graph. And that just seemed a little bit too good to be true. We thought, maybe half. That's like half.
50% of what we sold in our Kickstarter month. I mean, sure, it's obviously going to fall off by some.
Right.
But, half isn't unreasonable. And if we do it like that, then look at how many we're going to sell out by the time that Election Day comes around. In fact, we'll probably be looking at reordering by the time that Election Day comes around.
And by the way, this is selling out of... So during the Kickstarter, we had around 3,000 base games spoken for. This would be selling out of 20,000. So that was what we were looking at. It's like we're getting half. And even if we don't sell all of them,
Yeah.
like right now, so at the end of the campaign, we could have all walked away. Justin, I, and our design partners, Guts and Glory, could have walked away with about 25 grand each. But if we sell out or even come close,
Yeah.
we can now reorder and then walk away with $100,000.
$100,000 a piece?
Yeah, this almost seems conservative.
Oh, I mean, yeah, you look at it like that. I mean, I gotta look at houses to buy. Like this is a...
Like, that's a lot of wiggle room right there.
Yeah, but you wanna know what? We're not crazy, nor are we greedy. We wanna be conservative with this. Let's not get surprised. So we also came up with a break-even number.
Right, so assuming we order 20,000, that's the line that we have to hit to not be in debt by election day.
Which, I mean, come on.
And we'd still have a whole bunch, right? We'd still have a bunch left over that we could sell, 2018, 2020, politics is always happening.
Yeah, it's always cyclical, although I'm sure everybody will be tired of it after the election.
Right. Let's see what it actually looked like.
Well, and also, by the way, that is how much of our momentum from Kickstarter speed?
This was about 10%.
10%!
If we keep 10% of our momentum.
10% during an election year!
Right? I mean, it's our Christmas.
Yeah!
If anything, it could be more.
I mean, probably gonna be more! All right, John, let's go ahead and reveal what that graph actually looked like.
So, by the way, those spikes up there where it ramps up a little bit, that was actual Christmas.
Yeah.
So we didn't even reach our break-even speed during the biggest buy season of the year.
No, we didn't. That is something that deserves, and then maybe even a...
All right, so now we went from two questions, the two big questions. Where do you order? How many to manufacture? To one.
Which, by the way, we decided to order 20,000.
We did.
And we decided to manufacture it here in the good old US of A. I went to go visit the plant that we manufactured at. They were very, very nice people. They were on top of their business. They were making all sorts of amazing games and trading cards. And when we walked into the art department, there was somebody asleep at their desk. This turned into a very, very explicit foreshadowing. Because now we are forced to ask ourselves what, John?
Now what are we going to do? So what does $40,000 in debt actually mean at this point? Because we didn't take out a loan. What this meant was we paid our manufacturer $100,000.
Everything we had.
Everything that we had, leaving ourselves a little bit for shipping. The actual order was $140,000, and they're like, all right, we're going to give you half of your games.
Yeah.
We're going to hold on to the rest of them for you. And then just let us know when we can send them back to the warehouse, right? And then you'll pay us the rest of it, and we're thinking, yeah, okay, we'll get back to you in what, like a month?
Yeah, sure. And also it worked for us. We didn't have a lot of space. We stored a bunch with our design partners, Guts and Glory, and other than that, we sent a bunch to Amazon because Amazon was moving games for us. So we needed them to keep it. It's fine. We're $40,000 in debt. I'm sure one of our many plans will get us out of $40,000 in debt.
Right. So again, this is at the very, very beginning of that flat line graph. We're still very optimistic.
Very optimistic.
So our first plan, all right, media outreach. This is what you want. You get someone to write about you. All it takes is one, and then people will write about that, and people will write about that. Like, it's still, a year before Election Day.
Yeah.
What are they going to write about?
Yeah, not to mention, because I have a background in journalism, I have a lot of people that are friends of mine that work in journalism, many in politics, and I know for a fact that during election seasons, newspapers, blogs beef up their political staff because they want to create more content, but very often, in fact, it is almost universal, elections are kind of boring. You know, every once in a while there's news, but by and large, it's two candidates that you know are going to be the only people on the ballot in November giving the same stump speech over and over and over and over and over again. Except this election. So, John, let's go ahead and let's put ourselves back in the mindset of where we were. We have sent out demo copies of the game to all these different news outlets. We are ready to go. Let's go ahead and wait by our phones.
120 copies sent out to bloggers, media organizations, all of that. Let's see. Who's going to be first?
Who's going to be first to call us and break this story?
Oh, Justin.
Yeah.
So we got a return package from NBC.
Oh, I guess you can't just send unsolicited mail to NBC.
All right.
Oh, my friend from the Wall Street Journal called. She keeps trying to put it in front of the political blogging team, but they say they'll get to it when, you know, there stops being news. Hasn't stopped.
All right. Well, it'll stop.
All right, John, let's go ahead and take a look at what media outreach got us.
All right, so where are we after that? This is our 2-month plan. Oh boy.
Not a red cent
No.
from media outreach.
All right, so at this point, you know, the manufacturer is like, so you said a month, right? And
That's fine, it's fine.
it's fine.
Here we go. We got more plans. We have so many more plans. So
plans.
many more plans.
You know what gets me sometimes?
What?
Facebook ads.
Oh, everybody's on Facebook. Hands up if you've seen an ad for a card game or a board game on Facebook here in the audience. Look at this.
Oh, yeah.
75% of the audience. Hands up if you've bought a card game or a board game or backed a Kickstarter because of a Facebook ad. I know that I sure have.
Yeah.
Probably about a quarter of the audience did that.
Right.
So this is a foolproof plan. All we got to do is throw some money into Facebook ads. But, you know, John, I'm looking into this bank account of ours, and it's a little thin. So how much money do you think we have to put in to Facebook ads?
Well, you know, it's one of those things, right, where you just put money in. We'll make a couple of different campaigns.
Sure.
And then whichever one hits, we'll just pour money into that.
Double down on it.
Double down on that.
Okay.
All right, so let's just start $1,000.
$1,000.
$1,000.
$1,000. Okay. So let's go ahead and put in $1,000. Let's see what came back.
Nothing.
Literally nothing.
0 things.
8 clicks.
8
0
clicks.
buys. Now, this is not an indictment necessarily on Facebook ads in general. The more research that we've done on this, the more you actually realize that this is something that you do have to put in a lot more money. Even like a threadbare Facebook campaign just to find your hotspots is probably going to run you around, from what we've been quoted, about $10,000. Now, at that point, you find your gushers and you min-max what you're going to pay for them, either with Facebook or Google going forward. But $1,000 for us was literally just throwing it in the wind.
Yeah, there is a certain expertise and know-how that you need to acquire when doing Facebook ads. So the $10,000 that he's talking about is for someone who knows what they're doing.
Yes.
Like, this is someone who does Facebook ads, and that's their job.
Yeah.
And they need $10,000 to be able to find that, like, the vein where it starts to pay back.
It was either of our jobs.
We could have just burned it on YouTube and probably sold more games because of that.
Speaking of big, loud, attention-grabbing gestures.
Now we're kind of in panic mode, right? Publicity stunts. You're a podcaster.
Yeah.
We run scavenger hunts for a living.
Uh-huh.
We could probably think of something funny, you know. to do on camera.
Absolutely. So, hey, listen, it's election season. Let's go ahead on out to the Iowa caucus and the New Hampshire primary and run demos. And so this is us in Iowa for the caucus. We were there for a week. We delivered games to every one of the campaigns that were still in the running at that time. We wrote about it. We posted a lot on social media.
We went to each and every one of the campaign headquarters, both in Iowa and New Hampshire, and gave their staff.
Oh, yeah, we
game.
ran games at all these different places in Iowa, and each time somebody won a hand, you were able to put a corn kernel in your campaign's jar, mason jar, and then we delivered, eventually to the Bernie Sanders campaign, a novelty check for all the hearts and minds of America. Well, I'll tell you what, this went really, really well. We got a great response from people. We sold a fair amount of games. We made the news in Iowa. We made the news in New York. We made the news in Japan. I had an agent calling me because I did a Chris Christie impression that wound up making New York television. John?
Yeah.
When it was all said and done.
All right, let's see where we are. We made $1,000.
$1,000 though. $1,000.
I mean, we made more than that, but we're on the road and we're flying places.
Yeah.
Like we're flying to the places where everyone else is flying, and we're staying in hotels and we're eating. So like we came out of it with $1,000. It was a really, really great time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it certainly wasn't the solve for our wounds.
Positive momentum, though. Positive momentum. Oh, by the way, our manufacturer called. They're getting a little anxious for their money, and also they want to move these 10,000 units of our card game out of their warehouse sometime.
Yep. All right. Just another month, because we just got a write-up.
We got a write-up.
We got a write-up.
Yes. The Wall Street Journal.
Journal.
Not the people that my friends were friends with, but randomly somebody else who writes a game column for the Wall Street Journal. This is fantastic.
This is what we wanted literally the whole time, right? This is the one, and then people will write about this, and then it'll start the chain of events that will absolutely get us out of debt.
Absolutely, because that's something else we found out, was that by and large, the only place that we were going to get any kind of press that was positive was sort of outside of the game community. As I'm sure a lot of you guys are aware, social card games are not exactly universally beloved amongst the tabletop media, and we could not count on them to necessarily drum up excitement for our game, specifically once it was out of Kickstarter. In fact, there was one podcast, let's just euphemistically refer to them as the Dice Tower, that decided to crap on us despite they were doing their top 10 political games, named us as one that would not be on the list because it was garbage, and then admitted that they'd never played it. So take that.
Yeah. Getting them grown.
But anyway, we got the Wall Street Journal. That's what I'm talking about. This was a great article. How much did we make off it?
All right.
Another 1,000. Another 1,000.
Another 1,000.
Positive. All right, let's go.
So
Come
that's
on.
what we wanted, though, right?
Come on.
All right, now what are we gonna? Well, Amazon.
You used to work at Amazon.
I did.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about this. You can run ads on Amazon.
Well, hell.
So yeah, I'll just turn them on then. Click.
All right, and what do we make?
Hey, that was super duper duper easy.
Well, and we made $1,000.
Right.
All we have to do this is 38 more times. And we might, at some point, not be looking at paying $10,000 or more apiece out of our own bank accounts on a Kickstarter that we raised nearly $150,000 on.
All right, so now what we're looking at is, we start to talk to industry people.
Yeah. And what we hear is that the real way that you get traction for a game is by going to cons. Cons, much like this, PAX Unplugged. There we go. Because it is only through demoing the game and getting a reputation, getting written up in a lot of the blogs that cover events like this, that you can really get a word of mouth. And specifically, if you have a game that is as unique as ours, and I do believe that our game plays very unique, and specifically, once you play it, you realize that it is not a Cards Against Humanity clone, which was something that we had to sort of face head on. So we cut our teeth at an event called Politicon in Los Angeles. Now, this isn't a game convention. It's a politics convention. But unfortunately,
we're still in total panic mode. We've completely lost faith in our ability to sell the game itself.
yeah. So what we decided to do was make puppet videos.
Right? That sounds like a good idea. We'll trick people.
Yeah, we'll make them love.
They'll come for the puppets. So this is Puppet Bernie Sanders versus Puppet Richard Nixon.
And this was put together by our amazing partners, Guts and Glory, who made all the puppets and edited everything together. At Politicon, we did a live version of this where anybody could walk up and debate the sock puppet president of their choosing.
Right. It's not a gaming convention, but, you know, sock puppets, we might be able to get them to come debate our sock puppets. Then, on their way out of the booth, we'll get them with the gift shop. And that's when they'll buy the game.
This is me just,
Vermont.
Vermont, I'm Bernie Sanders, Vermont. So John, Politicon, what did we make?
Another 1,000.
Another 1,000,
Another 1,000 bucks. Again, you're on the road, you're doing it, but it was kind of halfway through this where we realized that we were just shooting ourselves in the foot with these puppet videos.
Yeah.
And what we really, really needed, and what people really responded to, was just a 2-minute demo of the game.
Yeah.
Do you want to buy the game? How much of the game do you want to buy?
Here's a shocking lesson that we had to learn well into the summer. You should just sell the game, dummies.
Yeah. Tell people about the game. Sell them the game.
Well, all right. Hey,
All right.
You want to know where people really, really like to buy games? People have been telling us. I believe it's pronounced Gen Con? Gen Con? Have you guys heard of this one? Gen Con, of course, in Indianapolis. It is a gigantic gathering. We had heard from the word go. This is where you have to go to kind of get it out to people. So, about 2 months before the convention, we just figured, all right, so I'm sure there's just a web form where we can get table space.
Let's just do Gen Con. I mean, we got a whole month to plan.
We'll just wait for Gen Con to get back to us.
Maybe we should get passes.
Oh, yeah. So we got passes.
I see that Fridays are available.
So luckily, I had a connection through the podcast for Escape Room Indie, which was right next to the convention. That if any of you guys are going to Gen Con, I highly recommend. They are family for us now because they really saved our bacon that first year. But we got an actual place where we could sell to a qualified audience. And that's really where two things became crystal clear. Number one, we cemented the lesson that we learned at Politicon to just have a good demo, play the game, let the game be fun. You don't got to do a lot of song and dance and hoopla beyond it. And B, that people at cons love exclusives. The one little, wow, we got some woos for exclusives. And so we came up with, for the first time, a 10-card expansion that we would be exclusive to Gen Con for television and movie presidents. So Air Force One, Veep, Independence Day, you could use
24.
those quotes in the game. And John?
Well, so we ordered 200 of those.
200 of them, yeah.
Right.
John, what do we do?
Chipping away at it.
Chipping away. So 36. This was something that we actually, for the first time, we had real excitement. Because what we found out later was that a lot of indie first-time Gen Con games don't make money. It's worth it to go to network. And boy, howdy, was that invaluable for us. We learned more in that 48 hours at Gen Con than we had reading anything else on Reddit or finding out just general Kickstarter business practices.
For example, our 10% estimate of Kickstarter enthusiasm continuing. We heard from people in the industry, and it took us until Gen Con to do it, that for a very popular IP title, 8%
After Kickstarter.
Keeping 8% of your Kickstarter momentum is very aggressive.
That's like hair blowing back so much momentum. Like our 10%, of course, that's the floor, was insane.
Insane.
If you're doing 4%, you're doing very, 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 very well.
Yeah, 4% of your momentum.
Yeah.
So that was great. Like, we came out, we had all of this knowledge, we still had all of this debt, but what we also had was about 20 leftover. Or
Mini expansions.
How
Yeah.
many were there?
I think it was 50. I think we moved about 150 there at Gen Con, and then we had about 50 left. And by the way, at this point, the emails from our manufacturer are getting shorter and shorter and meaner and meaner. They are done with us. They want their money, and even more than that, they want their warehouse space. So we eventually just get you need to get this out of here immediately. Give us addresses so we can get this out of our show floor. And at that point, it is tick tock until they get paid.
Yeah.
So, remember when we said that we got locked in because of our values about shipping by Christmas? We said it once on a live stream. Well, we again had a crisis of conscience because we had told those 150 people that bought the game at Gen Con that our television and movie President's expansion pack was a Gen Con exclusive, but then, we had 50 left over and $36,000 in debt. So we figured, hell, let's just try to sell them. And two things happened. Number one, we realized that people, if it was valuable enough and it was rare enough, would pay what we thought was insane, was effectively $1 a card or slightly less than $1 a card for an expansion. But also our mailing list, which we had built up and pretty much only used to keep everybody up to date, like we were sending letters home to mom.
Videos.
Was a sales tool and was best effectively used by just, shocker, letting people know that there's a new product as well as the price for that product. We sent out a mailing blast about those mini expansions, and we sold out of all 50 of them within 2 hours.
At $10. At $10.
$10 a piece. Not to mention, people were buying other stuff. They were buying other expansions. They were buying the base deck. We had our best day on the store since the Kickstarter, since the inception of the store, on that one day with only 50 mini expansions. So.
Yeah, basically we were seeing red. Like, we were seeing these things pile up literally inside of our designer's living room.
Yeah.
And we just got stuck in this mentality that we had to sell more games. We had to sell these things. We had 16,000 of them left. We need to sell more of these. And with the mini expansions, we're like, but we can just sell other things.
Yeah, that actually
already want it.
And they make this thing called money, which we were in desperate, desperate need of. So we went along with the wave, and we did mini expansions for each and every one of the actual debates, the Trump versus Hillary debates. We pre-sold them the day of the debate. We wrote them that night. We had them shipped to China the next day, and people had their quotes from that first debate in their hands, playable for their game nights before the next debate. So before the second debate, they had the first expansion. Before the third debate, they had the second expansion. And then on election night, we did an all I do is win thing with victory quotes, including one from the eventual president of the United States. Thank God we had a lot of pre-sales. And not to say that we are picking sides on any level, it's just that turns out our audience voted on one side more than the other. But it was huge. For the first time since we made that fateful decision to print.
Making money!
We made money. John, for the first time, let's reveal on Election Day
One year after the Kickstarter, we had made $3,000! And this is really, really obvious. Like that arrow right there, that's the point we decided, or we discovered that we could sell mini expansions, and all of that, right, just pulls up right over the line, only to get an email almost the next week from Amazon being like, so anyways, you've had a lot of stuff in our warehouses. That's gonna cost you a house of
So there we go. That's how we lost $40,000 on Kickstarter. It's also how we made it back. We're happy to take any questions. We got about 13 minutes, so we got time for a few questions.
So before we do that, do you care to guess how many times, so in the spirit of transparency, how many times, with an audience of 300 on Twitch and everyone in the room, how many times was that PAX code used to check out during this show? Anyone care to guess?
I'm going to go ahead with a 0.5.
0.5. Over under. So if there's one.
I'm going to go over 0.5.
All right. Any other guesses?
Come on.
0.
All right. There we go. Pay the under. All right. Do we have questions? I think that, yeah, there we go.
Oh, great.
Oh, hot mic, ladies and germs.
So did your manufacturer that you already owed a lot of money to and had a lot of backstop actually agree to print you expansions?
Yes. They did.
How did that email go down?
They like money, and the more times we promised to pay them money, the more times they said yes, no matter how insane that might have been. But yeah, we got printed with them even after the initial run. We got 2 expansions, the 2016 expansion, which is all quotes from the primary, and then the politically incorrect expansion. Oh, this is all family friendly. These are the curse word cards we had to cut to get taken out. They printed both of them while we owed them a lot of money.
What we realized with the manufacturer that we went with was they're a big company, and they're used to dealing with big companies. So as much as we were like sweating about the amount of debt we were in, for them that was like a small line item.
Yeah.
They probably could have gotten lost and they wouldn't have noticed. And if it weren't for the fact that there was just a monument to to like the amount of games that we had just sitting on their warehouse floor.
Yeah, no, they cared about the warehouse space far more than they cared about the money until they started caring about the money. Then they cared about it a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
When you were picking the printer, what was it? I understand the draw to the domestic printer because I want to do that as well. But one of my fears is that they'll have paper from China, ink from China, machines from China. So how deep did you go in that discussion to discover, how was that money really being spent internally versus externally?
So for us, it was just, was it made in the USA? Like, could we legally print "Made in the USA" on the box? Yes, that's where our investigation ended. For us, it was much more about like, how quickly can we get it? Will we get it by Christmas?
Yeah.
Can we put the stamp on the box?
Also, the other thing is, communicating with an American company is obviously a lot faster. When you're sending an email to Dallas, it's a lot different than going through a middle person that then is talking to somebody in China. So when we were looking for samples and looking for quality and stuff like that, the American company was getting back to us the next day, if not the same day, whereas it's a message in a bottle to China, even at its best.
So when you guys are doing this, you're still working your full-time jobs, I assume. How do you decide, like, how much time to commit to this? Like, I assume, you know, when you're in debt, it's like, you know, a fire under you. But, like, do you just get coffee once a week and be like, hey, what are we gonna do about this thing? Like, how do you decide that?
You know, it affected me a lot. I started a political podcast, in large part to plug the game.
How many people are here because of his podcast?
There's a few hands. By the way, Politics live show tomorrow night, Shot Tower Coffee, 7 p.m. But yeah, it affected my life a lot. It contributed in no small part to me quitting my day job because I thought, man, there's a real cash cow on our hands. We really need to milk this thing. But yeah, no, it's, you know, John and I worked at the same place. And so there was a lot of communication, and also at that point we were doing all of our fulfillment by ourselves. So I was going to where we were shipping out of our design firm's office. So I was kind of constantly in contact with everybody. Thank you.
You guys totally should have printed in Russia. That would have been. Anyway, sorry. Okay.
I actually, on our website, if you change your browser's language to Russian, we have a special pop-up.
Which, by the way, is the reason why all of our mail is like from dubious Russian sources with all sorts of crazy-ass links.
So my question is, from the manufacturing side, I've heard that a lot of manufacturers like to keep like 54 cards to a sheet and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like, so if you guys are planning these mini expansions, did you have to map out like, say, like the next 10 and then get those printed together, or?
So the mini expansions we actually did with MakePlayingCards.com, which is just an on-demand drop shipper. You just like generate the files and upload them into a deck, and then you print them and you can get them within like 2 weeks. So the mini expansions were actually it's very, very fast to get them. Anything bigger than that, like if you want a box, if you want something custom, then it is usually more beneficial to go with an actual manufacturer because they can optimize, they're really good at figuring out how many cards should go on a sheet of paper.
Yeah.
And you can always ask them to be like, hey, how many more cards can I have? Or how many cards less or how many cards do I have to take out before I get to that like one
That
sheet
magic number.
less, and then it's cheaper. So you can always ask the manufacturer.
Very cool. Thank you.
Hello, I've got 2 questions. You
Shoot.
mentioned earlier that due to a mistake between you and the manufacturer, you lost about $10,000.
Yeah.
I wonder if you can go into more detail about that. And also, if you could do it all again, what would you do differently in terms of working with or picking a manufacturer?
Great questions. The problem, and I'm, you know, we're not here to point fingers, but somebody from the point of shipping decided to put the labels that are supposed to be individually on these mini expansions on cases of the mini expansions. So
And
we
they were
had
labeled as the base games too.
Yeah.
So people would be ordering them on Amazon, and instead of getting, 500 cards in a delightfully packaged box, they'd be getting one blank white package with 10 of these inside it.
So they were good about it, and there was a make good and everything, but it definitely delayed. It was the only thing that came between us and getting everything out by Christmas. Other than that, it was just making sure that we expedited shipping to the point where, listen, you can't miss that. If it ain't there by Christmas Day, it might as well be there by St. Patrick's Day,
Right. And as for what we would do next time, we just wrapped our most recent Kickstarter for a game called Action News, and that is being printed in China.
China!
For like nothing. It's like embarrassingly cheap.
I'm curious, from when you did your original Kickstarter, do you find that you got, or do you think that you got value out of doing stretch goals? Because it seems like you have individuals buying a deck or one of the larger sets, but as you're selling more sets, you're increasing your per deck cost by adding more cards to it.
That's right. So that was actually, that was our kind of inspiration for stretch goals. Because a lot of times you see people do stretch goals where they're like, all right, at this amount, you also get a t-shirt. This amount, you also get a coffee cup. Or like
Oh my God, never do that. For God's sakes, please.
That's the worst idea.
If you take anything from this, when you are running a Kickstarter, it should be an idea flowchart. Should we do t-shirts? No. But I really, no. Straight line.
So good on a t-shirt.
No. Sell the game. At least we did not make that mistake, because I have seen so many friends, dear friends, that driven to the point of suicide, buying, fulfilling, and worrying about sizes. Shirts, no, never, never shirts. Swear to me right now you will never do shirts.
So what we did end up doing was all of our stretch goals, because I do think stretch goals are important. After you fund, you need something to talk to people about. You need something to like, tell your friends, keep telling your friends. It's not actually over. And stretch goals are the way to do that. So each of our stretch goals was based around making everyone's game better. It was about making more cards in the deck, a bigger box, at a certain amount. Like, if you look at our page right now, you'll see we had a lot of different levels. The only 2 levels that we had when we launched were the game and the collector's edition.
Yeah.
All of those intermediate levels were stretch goals because we had the politically incorrect expansion. But we didn't want to just throw that up there from the beginning, because if we just barely made the goal, then, and 2 people backed the politically incorrect expansion, we'd still have to make it for everyone.
Yeah.
So we waited until we had like, I think 700 backers before we added that
Before you
tier.
even do it like that. And then all of a sudden, that also gives you a nice kind of organic momentum to your number. All right, we have 3 people and like 2 minutes. So let's try to go as fast as we can so we can get to everybody.
You mentioned you were doing 10% of your Kickstarter momentum, and that was really good. No, can you
We
explain
were
what that
doing
metric?
4%.
You were doing 4%.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that was really good.
Is that what is that? What is that? Is that your monthly sales post Kickstarter?
So yeah, if you were to take your Kickstarter as your first month, it is the percentage of what you made from that. So it was 4% on our $142,000 number.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, there's a magic to Kickstarter that doesn't translate to like a business.
To life.
As soon as Kickstarter's over, you're just another like money grubbing corporation.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to shield my cheap wares.
I'm curious what your support was like from game stores.
You know, we that's one thing that we still aren't good at, is you know, getting into distribution, to be honest with you. We are pretty much a direct-to-consumer business right now.
It's a lot of legwork to get into game stores. You have to basically sell everyone that you walk into, or you get a distribution deal. Like,
Yeah.
it's a lot of work to go.
Unless there's somebody who wants to carry this, man, in this
Yeah.
audience, and, you know, come holler at your boy.
We got extras.
Hi. Well, first off, I was hoping for a mini expansion of 4 more years or 4 more tiers. And second, I'm solely doing it by myself, doing the game for Kickstarter too, and I want to know what I should be focusing on the most, because I've got the projections of, I've got quotes of this, so I should make X to break even, and realistic ones, it's just, and I'm running the cons and all the other stuff. We're doing the Unpub.
Yep.
And what's the best way to just get you out there? Do the grassroots movement.
Play the game with people.
Yeah.
Create a mailing list and play
Mailing
the game
list.
with people. Get people to sign up for your mailing list.
It's huge.
Get people excited about it. even before release, you can go to cons and play it with folks. That will be your most valuable thing once the campaign's running. Also, don't like neglect the fact that you should pad your base goal with like a little bit of money for you, because chances are you're going to overrun your budget anyways. So planning to pay yourself is probably a good idea.
And you know, truncated, we'll be happy to talk to anybody else who wants to stay here, but we do got to clear the room. Just try to do as much as you can before. Like, do not be thinking on the fly during your Kickstarter campaign or reacting to many things. Try to do as much. It's like pick and prep, I think is like the phrase, like a chef would. Like when somebody orders salsa at a restaurant, they're not, oh my God, I need a tomato and an onion and a bell pepper. What's cilantro? Like, they've already prepared it earlier and they can just scoop it out and hand it. And try to think of it like that for your Kickstarter. That's it. Thank you guys so much for